Hi everyone, it's Adam here from Real Schools, and this is just a follow-up video from the professional learning that we did around restorative practices at Skye Primary last week. And really one of the first things that I want to get on the agenda is a big thanks. So I really appreciated the wholehearted way you went about that task of chasing one rabbit, and that was your practice, and I really felt that we had a room of people who were committed to that concept of looking for a day at our own work and the way we're going and the way that we're actually following through in our actions, the commitments we're making to citizen building in our schools. And one of the ways that we really, I guess the fundamental aim of the day, and one of the reasons that we'd had conversations with your leaders about the idea of advanced restorative practices and also about the concept of building a restorative school community, was about how we can make that shift from implicit practice to explicit practice. And probably the four main components of that were, first of all, understanding the restorative framework. And the simplest and probably the easiest way to engage with a restorative framework is to think about those operating domains and about whether you're being a to, not, for or with teacher more often than not, and perhaps being able to allocate where your default mechanisms are and even how long you're spending in those boxes. Remembering always that you're going to drift. You're going to have times when you will leave the with box. Sometimes it'll be intentional and sometimes it'll be accidental. But regardless of what your motive is for moving outside the with box, it's always really important to use those operating domains to map back. And just find your way back there in an appropriate length of time, and you'll find that you'll do really good practice more often than not. The next element, I guess, that comes into that we really focused on last week was around the concept of a fair process. We talked at length about how that students will respond more effectively and with a higher level of engagement to a fair process than they will a fair outcome, and how even in terms of outcomes, the students are often more unfair on themselves than we would ever have been. So it's critical to get that process right, and I would encourage you to look sideways at a couple of people right now to see if you can talk about what some of those 3 E's might have been. There's a good little test for you. The next component of that explicit practice framework is looking at the restorative questions. So I can't encourage you more strongly to take the little card that you got on the day and pop it in your lanyard or pop it up in the classroom. Teach the students about the questions wherever you get the opportunity, and use those wherever works for you. And remember to do it in a way that works in terms of that is appropriate to the time that you can allocate at that moment. So remembering, though, that the fundamental function of the restorative questions is to take the conversation from the past to the present to the future. And any questioning skills or any counselling techniques or anything like that you might have at your avail that helps you move the conversation from past to present to future are going to be valuable to you. The last component that we haven't gone into in great length yet is the theory and the research and the conferencing, and we'll be looking at that the next time we get together. We've quite deliberately stayed at the informal end because there's just so many interactions at that end. So that's where you've got the greatest traction to enhance and to transform culture. And that's why in the afternoon we spent some time looking at some really practical ways that at the informal end you can get a shift in your classroom or in the learning environment that you work in. And we looked at Joe Lang's t-shirts and different ways that you might be able to keep yourself on track, and I hope that was useful to you. In terms of where to from here, I'm really looking forward to coming back and working with you in class. Remember that there are 3 modes in which I can show up and deal with any restorative challenge that you might be having. Number 1 is that I can model for you. Number 2 is that we can co-teach. And number 3 is that I can observe and provide feedback. So have a good think about which one of those is going to work for you as you go about the task of teaching your young people, and as you work out what the real challenges are for the group that you've got this year. We're going to run that parent information session to really get the parents on side. We're going to factor in some mentoring and coaching for both the leadership or the implementation team, and also for groups of teachers who might be encountering similar challenges along the trip. And also remember that you've got your membership components as well. So every month we send through to Renee and Cherie some teacher practice articles, some cultural leadership articles, and we also send a video prompt around something you might like to discuss around that topic of teacher practice in a staff meeting. But more than anything, you'll see on the screen now that there's some clips of the way you worked together on the day, and because the gift is just truly in the dialogue. And no matter how busy we get this year, and no matter how many competing priorities you get this year, I want you to use this video as a reminder that whatever falls off the agenda, it can't be the opportunity for you guys to sit together and talk about great practice, to share your stories, to share your skills, to share your techniques, to build your capacity. And when you're committing to doing that together, you really get some great stuff emerge from it. And some of it's highly unexpected, but often very, very effective. So it's hugely important that we remember that the opportunity to sit together and discuss the way that we're teaching is a very beneficial thing to do in terms of building a restorative school. And the last part of the video we're going to cut to in a moment is your exit interviews. And I want to thank you for coming up with a wide variety of different commitments that you've made to help make Skye Primary School a truly restorative school and a truly restorative school community. And so I really want you to have a good look at those, remember them, check in on them, check in on each other, and keep yourselves accountable for really great practice. Finally, a thank you and an excited wish. I'm really looking forward to working with you. I know that we can do some fantastic stuff together, and 2014 and 2015 is going to be really exciting while we build that restorative school community for Skye Primary School. I'll see you really, really soon.
I'm going to make sure I stay in the width, or try and stay in the width as much as I can.
I'm going to make time for check-in circles and the check-out at the end of the week and actually put it on my flow of the day.
I'm going to start having a few more check-in circles at the beginning of the day.
I'm going to add a feeling to what I say.
Good one.
I'm going to try and be a with teacher.
I'm going to build communities within the new school connections as well.
I'm going to put the restorative questions in a lanyard and make sure I've got them with them all the time, so I can use the language a lot more than I'm doing at the moment.
I want to spot the toing and the foring earlier.
I'm going to strive to be a with teacher.
Thank you. What are you going to do?
Okay, I'm going to try and use the question card a bit more and think about getting the children to come up with a solution to fix their problems.
I'm going to involve my kids more in the process of coming up with how to resolve their problems.
I'm in a support role, so I'm going to make sure I build up really good relationships with the children before I even start any work with them.
For me, it's going to be about taking the time to check in with the students in my class and the other teachers in my team and other teachers throughout the school.
Build positive relationships with all the students in my grade, every single one.
I'm going to check in more regularly with staff members.
I'm going to stay more in the realm of with rather than being really busy and jumping to the do, hopefully.
I'm going to try and make circle time a regular part of my grade instead of just now and then.
I'm going to make sure I'm a with teacher and remember that every behaviour has a meaning and a context.
I feel strengthened that what I'm doing is working, and I'm allowed to take the time to do a check-in each day.
I'm going to do circle time with every class so that I can build relationships with all of my students.
I'm going to be more conscious of using affective statements in my classroom.
I'm going to try and do more effective statements and effective interactions, and I'm going to do 2 truths and a lie.
I'm going to do more of the why, so explain to the kids why we do the things we do.
Okay, so my commitment is to work through the questions in terms of resolving conflict.